I'm your host, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now take a look at gamma brainwave patterns. You can see low gamma cycles are between 25 to 50 cycles per second, and high gamma brainwave patterns, they can go from 50 to 100 cycles per second. And this is an arousal that's taking place in the brain. And the arousal is producing emotions like ecstasy, bliss, euphoria. It's a whole different type of arousal. So then, if the purpose of meditation is to get beyond your analytical mind, and what separates your conscious mind from your subconscious mind is your analytical mind, in order for you to get beyond your analytical mind and enter the subconscious mind where those automatic programs exist, you're going to have to learn a formula or a way to begin to slow your brain waves down from high-level beta to mid-range beta to low-level beta. And when you start slowing down into alpha brainwave patterns, you've crossed past the analytical mind. And now, as you begin to slow your brainwaves down even further, you're in the subconscious part of the brain. Now you can begin to make some significant measurable changes. So then let's review this. We go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. And think about beta and alpha being the seat of your conscious mind, and alpha, theta, and delta representing your subconscious mind. And as you begin to slow down brain activity, because you're no longer analyzing and thinking with your neocortex, then consciousness or your awareness or energy naturally flows right out of the neocortex, right into your limbic brain, the seat of your autonomic nervous system. That's the part of your brain, remember, that begins to control and regulate all those automatic bodily functions. In a sense, it's the part of the brain that's giving you life, that has an agenda to keep you in balance, to keep you in homeostasis, and it's very automatic. So now you're in the very operating system where you can begin to program your autonomic nervous system to change its hormones, to begin to change the body's function in some way. And in a sense, you are conscious in your subconscious mind. Our brain scans have shown that students that know how to regulate and slow down their brain waves, they move into that low-level alpha and theta, and all of a sudden, they start to merge with their autonomic nervous system. And we call this getting beyond the self. And when the conscious mind is merging with the subconscious mind, or you're beginning to connect to your autonomic nervous system, its job is to create order and balance. And when you get beyond yourself, get beyond everything known in your three-dimensional reality, something magical happens. When the autonomic nervous system begins to connect, and you're not activating those circuits, you're not thinking and feeling in the same cycles, all of a sudden it begins to organize or create coherence in the neocortex, which has been fractured and subdivided because of the hormones of stress. So now, think about coherence as order, as cadence, as rhythm. Things are working synchronized in an organized way. Think of incoherence like a group of drummers with no rhythm banging on the drums at the same time. And the brain, as well as the heart, that are influenced by the hormones of stress, as they begin to function in a very disorganized way, that incoherence is a very weak signal for the body. Think about it like this. If you went to a football game and something happened favorable to the home team and everybody was clapping at the same time and applauding, that would be incoherence in the brain. Now, normal coherence in the brain would be like every 10th person in the stadium clapping in rhythm. And that's normal or average for most human beings. But when the brain and heart get highly organized, highly integrated, highly synchronized, imagine everybody in the stadium clapping at the same time in rhythm. Not only does it create order and coherence, but it also increases the amount of energy in the brain and heart. And when there's more energy in the brain, and there's more energy in the heart, there's a greater level of awareness about your body, your environment, and time. I want to show you the difference between coherence and incoherence. On the left image where it says coherence, you're looking at the top of their head. Now, 19 different compartments of the brain that are connected through electrodes, and if all of those compartments are synchronized, you'll see the valleys and the peaks all lined up, and we'll call that order or coherence. If different parts of the brain are lagging or behind or out of order, then you'll see all of a sudden some of those valleys lining up with some of the peaks, and different compartments of the brain are not communicating well with each other, and we call that incoherence. When we see a lot of blue when we're measuring coherence, it means it has a low level of coherence in the brain. If you don't see any blue and you see pink, that's normal. And normal means average, what the average person experiences in terms of coherence. The red represents a high amount of order in the brain, and red means there's a super level of coherence. So now, this is a normal brain scan. This is what we call a strip chart, and we're measuring the 19 different parts of the brain. That brainwave pattern is low-level beta brainwave patterns. Now, the person's sitting there, their eyes are open, they're being their normal self. We ask them to close their eyes, begin to open their awareness, begin to open their focus from a convergent focus to a divergent focus or a broad focus. In a matter of seconds, this is what we see. Now remember, coherence is orderliness, and look how those waves are organized and stacked equally on top of each other. The brain is highly synchronized or phase synchronized in alpha brainwave states. Here's another one. Another person goes from a narrow focus to a broad focus, and you can see the entire brain is coherently in alpha brainwave state. Here's another person who has global coherence. They go from a narrow focus to a broad focus, from a convergent focus to a divergent focus, and you can see all of those different brainwaves beautifully stacked on top of each other, and we can say that the brain is highly integrated. If you look at that arrow on the right side of the screen, you can see that all of those peaks are lining up. That means the entire brain is in an alpha coherent state. In this slide, you're seeing someone in phase synchronized coherent theta brainwave patterns. The entire brain is synchronized into theta, and they're in that hypnotic state. They're in that suggestible state where the lights are out in the thinking neocortex. And when they slip into that theta brainwave state, we can say that they're completely beyond themselves, and they've dissociated from everything known in their three-dimensional reality. Our research, as well as other researchers at Princeton University and around the world, have found that if you can broaden your focus, as you begin to open your awareness, the act of taking your attention off of everything material and putting your attention on nothing but space. If reality is both a particle and a wave, if it's matter and energy, and there's an invisible field of energy called the quantum field that exists beyond this space and time, that you can't experience with your senses, but can only experience with your awareness. And that unified field, that invisible field of frequency, that is that very frequency that connects everything material and organizes everything into form. So then when you broaden your focus and you take your attention off of matter, you're putting your attention on that invisible field of energy, whose signature is oneness, whose signature is order, whose signature is greater and greater levels of wholeness. The person is feeling so whole, so in love with life, that it's impossible for them to want. I mean, how can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything. And so we've measured this on people. And in fact, we can actually predict when it's going to happen to a person. We start seeing more and more order taking place in the brain, and all of a sudden we can say after a certain point, this person is going to have a very transcendental moment. And when we see those two hemispheres coming together, when that person is connecting and they feel whole, energy moves right into their heart, and their heart starts beating very orderly and very coherently. The heart begins to produce an ambient magnetic field. Now, the field and the energy is beginning to broaden from the body, and that energy is frequency, and that frequency carries information. And now the person feels connected to something greater. And you can walk around and look at that person, and you can see tears of joy rolling down their face because they feel so whole, they feel so in love with life, that they feel connected to something greater, that I call that the natural state of being. So what does it mean then to get beyond the self? If we're getting beyond the analytical mind and cooling off brain activity that's associated to everything familiar in our life, that means then, in order for you to get beyond yourself, you're going to have to take your attention off of everything material and known in this three-dimensional reality. And our research shows that when you go from a somebody to a nobody, from putting your attention on some things to putting your attention on nothing, to putting your attention from somewhere to nowhere, when you're putting your attention from sometime into no time, that is the moment you're disconnecting from this three-dimensional reality. And in a sense, we call that getting beyond the self. And now, at this elegant moment, you are on the sweet spot of the generous present moment. And we could say now, you're at that perfect place in the eternal now for you to begin to create something new from the unknown. Why? Because if you have no attention on the predictable future or the familiar past, if you have no attention on anything material in your outer environment, on no one or nothing or nowhere, and you've gotten beyond your body, which has been conditioned to be the mind, the only thing that you are in that moment is pure consciousness. And when you're pure consciousness, dissociated from everything material in your life, now you're at the perfect place to create something new. Now that I've shown you that there's a formula and how you can create a more coherent, integrated, synchronized brainwave state, I'd like to show you that this process can affect your ability to reprogram and change your own genetic destiny. In the next episode, we're going to explore how you can become your own genetic engineer. I'm Dr. Joe Dispenza for Rewired, and I hope to see you in the next episode where we go beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Dispenza.